man, my motivator. My money maker. No, I don't see the haters. So let go get the paper.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SpareKeas podcast. This is your host, Q. I'm joined by my other host, S.
How everybody doing? This is your boy S, aka Shell. And today we're going to bring you some joy, some excitement, some good conversational pieces. And let's just see how the thing flows.
Right. So this podcast is basically going to be about G.L.U.E. I call that growth, learning, understanding of everything, right? So we're going to talk about various different topics, some things that are going on in our lives, some things we see going on in social media, some things we see going on in our local communities as well. So I just want to give us a brief introduction for each of us. I'm going to have S go first and talk about what's going on with his life and, who he is, what direction he wants to go as far as, his professional life.
All right.
Please take it away.
I got you. So, everyone, I'm S. I am a business owner. I own an athletic training business. I recently quit my job, not because I was making so much money that I couldn't manage the two, because of a thing called respect. And that's something I really want to harp on to a lot of people. Follow your passion over what puts money in your pocket. And I say that because you can't be the richest man on earth and not be happy. It doesn't make sense. So find you a job, find you a lane, find you a place where you're happy in what you do, you're able to make a profit off what you do, and you're not waking up every day feeling miserable. So I have my athletic business still. I'm growing with that venture. I'm about to find another source of revenue because more than one stream of income is always the best route. But just a little background on me. I am a survivor of a lot of things in this thing called life. One of my adverse moments came a year ago. Had emergency heart surgery, and that was my eye-opening moment in my life where I realized you have to live things in a manner to make you happy, and you can't do it for anybody else but yourself. Two biggest things: got two beautiful kids, got a nice little car, nice little apartment set up. But I'm always here for growth, always here for development, and that's where hanging out with a guy like my cousin Q, we grow in life and we expand, and we have a very diverse background and things that we like to do. Oh,
okay, dope. I myself, I'm Q. Much like my cousin, I'm a business owner as well. I'm one half of Turnkey Properties. Me and my fiance own that company. It's essentially a real estate company where we leverage real estate to make a profit, whether that be selling a house, renting a home, or creating an assisted living facility. We're in the beginning stages of that business. So our focus right now is just to grind it out as much as we can. Like as myself, I recently separated from my job just because, it was unexpected, but at the same time, I kind of felt like it was. Part of me felt like it was necessary. Part of me felt like a relief when they finally told me, "Hey, we can't use you anymore. We can't accommodate you anymore." So that was pretty much. And forgive me. Hold on a second. My dog is being super needy. Hold on. I apologize. Essentially, part with my job has been a blessing and hold on. Sorry. It's my fiance. Part with my job has been a I don't know. I hadn't quite figured out what emotions I'm going through at this point. It's been a relief. It's also been, I think for a long time I was doing stuff I didn't enjoy the culture, but I never really thought once I separated, like going back into corporate America would fix those ills. I always felt like even if I found another job, which I'm looking for at this point, just because, hey, I got bills. But even on this job search, I just feel like I'm going back into the same culture. I'll be just as unhappy as I was beforehand. Um, doing what I was doing previously. But for the most part, I'm trying to come to terms with growing as an entrepreneur, growing as an individual. Because to be honest with you, man, entrepreneurship is hard, bro.
It
Like
definitely is.
it's it's being a self motivator and being there for yourself 100% of the time, all the time, doing things even if you don't want to, shit, standing in places you don't want to stand in, being uncomfortable as fuck.
It it
That's
forces
the
you to grow though. That's the big thing of it. It forces you to grow.
yeah,
If you're not happy in what you're trying to do, you're gonna be miserable the whole time and end up back in a regular 9 to 5 job working for somebody else.
right, exactly that. I was actually having a conversation with my mentor a couple days ago. He said, so like I mean, traditional standpoint, right, on getting to where you are is you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, whether that be a bachelor's, master's, you get your PhD. But ultimately, ultimately at this point for me, I feel like I was raised for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Like, I mean, and not to say it doesn't exist, but like when when my parents got the notion that it was good to go to college, it was like, all right, no one else has a college degree. At this point in time, right now, you should go to college, you should get a degree, you should get a degree. But then after that, when my parents had me, it took me 20 years to get to college. 2 decades, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So by that point in time, everybody and their mom has a degree now. Everybody and their mom has a bachelor's, a master's. Before I think they were like, oh, you get your bachelor's degree, you'll be all right. But now people are like, okay, you got to have your master's degree to make money.
Oh yeah,
Period.
bachelor's degrees are becoming like the new high school diplomas, the way the market is. And me
Exactly.
coming out of that retail market, I can say that I worked with people that I know were working on PhDs that had bachelors. I worked with so many people that had further education because that was the model they were taught, and they were still working at a retail store.
Exactly. Exactly that. I know a guy right now has his PhD in sociology. He works at a hot dog stand at Bank of America Stadium. That's all he does.
It's
It's
crazy.
it's amazing. You come out of school with like especially for him, he has a PhD. He comes out of school with 200,000 student loans easy. He works at a hot dog stand. Like you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's a wild scenario.
I guarantee you that expensive piece of paper did not teach him how to work at that hot dog stand.
Nah, bro. It's like granted, I got my bachelor's in computer science. So like if I it wouldn't it's not quite the same weight when I say this, but like anybody can have that job. Any 16-year-old in the state can have that job.
Oh yeah.
No experience. And it's crazy what that what that what that care I guess looks like, right? Because if you think about it for a second, everybody in America tells you, okay, you need to get an education, you need to go to school, you need to do this, you need to do that. But then once you get to that point, even if you get there without student loan debt, it's like, all right, I'm now working this job where people are going to tell me how much I'm worth, basically, right?
Yep.
I come to work every day, I do my work, and then like, at what point do I decide how much money I get paid? Because I think you were in a situation recently, right, before you left your job, right? You were like, all right, it's time for me to make some more money. Am I right?
Yep. I was getting ready to have that conversation about leveling up. And I realized two things that are very important. One, if you don't control your own destiny, the person that's doing it for you is going to do what's in their best interest, not yours. And two, your boss will never pay you what he makes to be his neighbor. It's never going to happen.
No, not even close. Like it'll be a cold day in hell before before your boss tells you, okay, hey, I'm going to pay you the same amount of money that I'm getting paid right now to do my job. Never.
Exactly.
Not only is that shameful for him, it just doesn't look good on company books for it to have somebody that's somebody that's managing the place be making the same amount as somebody that works there. It
Yep.
never makes sense.
So that's part of the reason we part ways right there. It was a respect thing, and I was undervalued, and your value is what you set it at. Like I said, I run a private training business named Shell Athletics. I charge $60 an hour for what I do. I'm very good at what I do. I was working at a retail store. I won't say their name. Making just under $15 an hour. It's a big comparative right there. I charge 60 for my business, but my main job was paying me a quarter of that.
Right.
So it's value. It's what do you think your time is worth? And clearly that's a big gap. So when it came time and situations boiled over, my mind, my conscience, my soul had no problems leaving that store. I realized, especially last year with the whole heart condition and all that, that store didn't burn down when I left. That company didn't go bankrupt when I left. Know why? Because it's molded to just keep replacing people. That's what it's going to happen. If you don't do something for yourself, they're just going to replace you with the next person.
Exactly. Exactly. Because that's exactly what happened to me. I left my job, or I got let go from my job a few weeks ago. My job is essentially a, how would you describe it? It's like a melting pot of people with different skill sets. So essentially, what happens is the main company, the main branch of the company, essentially is looking for work on a project basis, right? So companies are looking to set up different implementations of databases or new Salesforce implementations. It basically any kind of tool that would facilitate growth in that business, right? So we contract out on separate projects, and so I'm a part of a company that basically moves me from place to place where my skill set is needed. And so there's more than one person in the company with my skill set, obviously. And so when I got let go, essentially, they just pulled somebody else from the pit as soon as they needed to.
Yep.
No sweat off their boots.
So all they do
You know
is
what I mean?
replace.
Exactly. It's a it's a it's like being a domino, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at as soon as the boss knocks down the first person, everybody else falls in line. And shoot, if you find out, okay, down the line I'm missing a domino, or this domino didn't fall right, you replace it, you put a new one in there, and you knock them down again.
Yep. It just keeps going in the line. Like I
Yeah.
said, when I left the store, I'm pretty close with a lot of people in that store. I received texts from the same day, them trying to find ways to shift people to fill my void. It wasn't the store was going to melt down. Let's close it. Let's figure it out. It was okay. What three people can we get to try to replace the items and objects that he does in the store the best? I mean, it might take them a while to figure it out, but they're going to keep playing around until they do. Like I said, that store doesn't end just because I left.
It certainly won't. The clock will keep going. Um, but okay, I think we've pretty much covered, as far as that segment goes.
Yeah.
Let's step forward to our next segment, which is about the Me Too movement. The next segment is basically going to be sort of a social question, right? So
Yeah.
obviously there are certain standards that are in place today that weren't the same 5-10 years ago in terms of what women are currently fighting for. And granted, we probably should have a woman on this segment to answer some of these questions, but
Yeah.
I think we could do well with the male perspective as well.
Oh, yeah.
So the two questions we're going to address is what is rape, what is consent, and how does your feelings about a person in particular affect that consent? As in, there are probably some times in your life where you received advances from a woman, but she really wasn't what you were looking for, and some of those advances weren't quite accepted. Am I right?
Yeah. There's been a couple times like that.
Right. And there's also been times vice versa where you made advances and it wasn't quite what she was looking for, so it didn't work out in that aspect as well, right?
Yeah. But the feelings aren't mutual, definitely.
Exactly. So that's the question I bring about what consent is, right? So there are certain things that people who have mutual feelings for each other can do versus someone that's just kind of trying to shoot their shot, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you think about that? Why do you think that is?
I think it comes down to a person being comfortable with somebody else at the end of the day. Like, you just break it back down to the basic days in high school. when you were flirting with a girl, when you were talking with a girl, you didn't necessarily try or say certain things until you reached a certain comfort level. And I guess you can relate that to the same thing you do when you're dating somebody in college and beyond. You typically don't cross lines until you feel comfortable or think you're at a place where that action might be warranted.
Right. Because I do definitely feel that certain advances by certain people are obviously accepted versus, like, let's say for instance, right, if I don't know, let's just say some girl you didn't like was making advances towards you. Obviously, there are certain things that she will try to do, but then you won't feel comfortable accepting those things. But now, let's say Halle Berry did the same thing. How does it change?
It definitely changes perspective because if you're, say, somebody's trying to give you a kiss, if you don't want that kiss, when they lean in, you typically lean away or push them away. You have somebody that you're quote unquote attracted to, or you have some kind of feelings towards, and they try that same kiss and they lean in, you lean back towards it. It's an innate behavior. You do it because you want it. You don't do it because you necessarily think about it. You see a behavior, you respond to a behavior.
I agree. I would agree. I feel like for the most part, like, okay, let's say we probably had a couple of these instances, right, where you got a little bit too drunk and you woke up the next day, you're like, oh well, and you think, and you probably had sex with a girl you really didn't intend on having sex with, or vice versa, she didn't intend on having sex with you, but at the same time, you might have been planning to eventually have sex with them, or she might have been eventually planning to have sex with you, but because it happened early, because of drunkenness, it's still okay. In a different circumstance, that's obviously rape, just because. Okay, so right, so the
Yeah.
scenario is that you're both inebriated. Obviously, you both essentially initiate sex. You have sex the next day. One of you regrets it.
Yeah.
At that point, is it rape?
Letter of the law, it becomes rape because you both weren't in the right mindset to give consent.
Right.
So, but if you go off quote unquote regular street perspective, most people wouldn't see it as that because even though one or both of y'all were drunk, you both still did the action. So people
Right.
people traditionally wouldn't say it is. But if we're going off the letter of the law, if you're inebriated in any shape or form and you have sex and you weren't in your right main frame to give consent, it is legally technically rape.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now there's not really a way around it. It's just like, so, like I said, like 5, 10 years ago, these things were kind of happening and they were just happening, right?
Yep.
Nobody really thought twice about them until, okay, people started saying, people after the fact would be like, okay, well, I didn't want this to happen. I didn't want this, for myself. And then, well, the idea came about that, okay, he raped you, right? It's not that you regret the action. It was something in the moment that you were inebriated, you consented to, but then after the fact, you go, okay, I didn't want this. He raped me or she raped me, which you don't really hear a lot about that from men. Men
Yeah.
just like,
Men
it
kind of
doesn't really.
take it on the chin ish. They kind of just chalk it up as an L. You don't really hear a whole bunch of men rape stories unless it's man on man.
Right, and man on man isn't even isn't even close to being taken as a serious, just because it's like, all right, a man on man situation is like, oh, you lost a fight, you got beat up, and then he raped you.
Yeah. Most people relate that
Which,
to just regular prison culture.
yeah, basically, like if you ever seen Snowfall, that TV show, um, and I hate to spoil it for anybody listening, but like we on season 3 of Snowfall. If you ain't watched it by now, it's pretty much too late for you. So like in the in the first in the first in the first few episodes of that show, um, essentially, uh, Franklin and Leon enlist a guy named Carvel, I do believe, to help them get the money back from somebody who robbed him. In an earlier episode. So basically, Carvel is the hired hitman, supposed to come through, beat the guy up, and so they can get the money back. They can pay Carvel, and basically be out. But Carvel basically a psychopath. It's a guy that's been to jail multiple times, repeatedly over and over again. He runs in and he smacks the guy up, hits him, beats him with a bat, and like basically, typical interrogation method, right?
Yes.
He's beating the dude up, like where's the money at, all that, and then eventually he gets tired of talking to him. Dude just rapes him straight up. Dude rapes him. After he rapes him, dude finally tells him where the money's at. So in the beginning, that started out as a one-on-one confrontation. Like it
Yep.
was Carvel versus the other guy. Carvel won, and then Carvel just happens to be a guy that rapes niggas. So there you are.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think we might have got off track a little bit there.
Yeah, but we were
Basically,
talking about what the age of consent and stuff like that now.
right, right. I don't think the age has changed much, right? So like the age,
As far as legal
like
like terms now, age hasn't really changed. Um, I think the biggest statute that I've seen that a lot of people are trying to get changed, and I want to say is in North Carolina and a few other states, that if two people start off having consensual sex and one person changes their mind mid act, then it is not constituted as rape if the other person decides they don't want to stop because you gave consent at the beginning. And you're technically, and by their letter of the law, you're not allowed to change your mind in the middle of the act. Now that is a
technical
very dicey rule law.
by technical law. Where did that come from?
I
Who
would have to
started?
pull up the actual statute, but I've heard people fighting and trying to get it changed. But there's a law that if you give consent before the act of sex, and you cannot change your mind while having sex.
Oh yeah. Shoot. I think that's the thing. In North Carolina. I think if the two of you are married, your wife's not allowed to say no to you. I think
I've heard
that's
that.
still in effect,
I've heard that too.
which is crazy to be honest with you.
It definitely is.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's kind of a morally wrong area, right? Like you, even if two people consent at the beginning, one person's like in the middle, like, all right, no, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. I want to stop. Like at that point, morally, I feel like
You're
it's the
obligated to
other
stop.
person's responsibility. Exactly.
All right, so yeah, as in 2017 was the last time it was in Forbes article. In the state of North Carolina, a woman cannot legally revoke consent after sex begins.
Wow. So like, does that have like a statute as to whether the person's like inebriated or
No, yeah, the person has to be in their right mind. So like, if we're on a date and we're having a good time, we're not drunk, we're not even drinking. Let's just say I come over to your house for the standard Netflix and let's see what happens type deal, and then you become aroused. We start the act of sex. You can't then change your mind once we engage in the act. You can't legally at this time stop it because you gave consent at the beginning.
exactly. I would definitely agree. Um, it's it's hard to well obviously morally it's upsetting, right? So like
Yes.
you think about it like all right, well 20 minutes in, person starts doing stuff you really didn't agree you really didn't think you had agreed to in the beginning. You're like, all right, okay, now I'm not okay with this, or like suddenly you get tired of what's going on and you try to move on. The person's like, nah, and it kind of spirals out of control from there.
Yeah, it kind of does. Just skimming through the article, it pretty much says that the person has up until the moment of penetration to change their mind. But once penetration happens, you're stuck in the act until
That's pretty much a wrap.
y'all are done. There's also another weird law that I've heard. I would have to look that one up too. Also, I've heard that if a woman is raped, but at any point in time actually enjoys the act of sex, then it is no longer rape.
What?
I was told by a group of women before that I don't know which state has this law or where this law exists. It might just be random gossip. But if a woman is forcefully, like if you force a woman to have sex, but in any point in time while you're forcing her to have sex, it becomes pleasurable for her, such as say you make her orgasm and it makes her quote unquote enjoy that one moment, even though you're forcibly doing the act, it is no longer rape because she had pleasure during the act.
So essentially, if essentially if you start up and she's unwilling, if in the event in the middle she's like, oh, well, this is actually not that bad.
Yeah,
let's
the
keep it
minute
moving.
she says something like that, or the minute she has any kind of enjoyment, it no longer becomes rape.
That's I don't know about that. I don't know because like when you think about it, all right, if it started involuntarily, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
eventually it's like, okay, boom, she's enjoying it now. Like this is actually some stuff that she likes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does she feel after that? Like what happens? I mean,
I'm
I don't
not.
know because
I'm not
it's
really
like if
sure.
you, yeah, I'm like what happens after that? Like, do you? Because I'm just confused. Like, I guess not even confused, but like, how does that make sense? Because it's like I can kind of understand like, all right, this is not something I wanted to happen, but then I found out this is something I actually liked. It's like it's not quite akin to losing your job, right?
Yeah.
But like it's like, all right,
All right.
boom, I'm now put in this very uncomfortable situation, but oh, this is not that bad.
I got you.
This is actually good for me. Like,
There's a government website. I can give out the link, whatever. Or you can just kind of Google around and find it, and it says the three things that are warranted to determine rape: consent, wantedness, and pleasure.
consent, wantingness, and pleasure. So essentially, in the state we're talking about, any of those three things can be grounds for enjoyment, basically.
Pretty much. So at any point in time, if you gave consent, wanted it, or had pleasure, it would deem it not rape.
Well, wanted and consent are like two. I feel like there shouldn't be three. I feel like it should be
I
consent.
agree that it's a weird way, but that's what they say is the three dimensions affecting the perceived stress and judgments of rape and sexual encounters.
It's weird. It's like because I feel like wanted and consent should be the same thing. Like it, like how do you know somebody wanted unless they gave you verbal consent? Or like because I would see saying okay, I want this to happen as verbal consent, right?
Yeah, it's a weird stipulation, a weird bylaw. I think it boils down to like some type of judgment.
Yeah, but if you judge it wrong, like judgment is very subjective.
Exactly.
You judge it wrong, and all of a sudden you doing 15 to 20.
Yep, that's where it becomes on shaky lines. But like I said, it says kind of pretty much if you can prove that one of those three things were given in or happened during the act or before the act, it diminishes the case of what it was rape.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense to me. If so basically you walk to a courtroom and a group of people decide okay they present the subjective facts rather the opinions and then if a jury decides okay well we feel like she wanted it eh, case gets thrown out.
Yep,
Seems like a very trash seems like a very trash legal system, you know what I mean?
it is. It's there feeling. Um, Give me 1 second. I want to pull something back up if I can get back to it. I want to say North Carolina actually had the that consent law I was talking about that you couldn't change consent. I want to say that the incident stemmed from another incident that happened recently. So I want to say that article is from 2017. I want to say there was another incident last year where a woman changed her mind mid act. The guy got arrested for rape. They went to court about it. She admitted she gave consent at the beginning of the act, but changed her mind due to him becoming aggressive and hair pulling, things of that nature she didn't like. And they said
Oh,
once she gave consent that it was no longer rape. And if she didn't like what he was doing, she could have asked for him to stop. But legally, he was not raping her because she allowed him to start intercourse.
Start the process. Yeah, okay. So basically, she didn't know he was a freak, and then stuff popped out. He was like, "Oh, nah, we not done." He went on 50 Shades of Grey on her, and she wasn't having it.
Yeah, she wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, she wasn't ready for that. And so then they went to court, essentially for no reason, because ultimately they determined, he wasn't at fault. So she didn't get nothing from it. It's just a one time she regretted having sex with somebody.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when you think about it, I don't know. We don't. I feel like men don't necessarily get that option to be like, okay, I regretted this, or this is not what I wanted.
Yeah. And
be like, oh well.
To make this even more diabolical, now that I've read it, I found it on CNN again. On CNN, it says that North Carolina is the only state where a woman cannot withdraw consent.
Only state?
We are the only state in North Carolina where a woman cannot withdraw consent.
Shit. So, out of 50,
yep,
we are one.
We are one. And the language in the bill is read: a person who consents to vaginal intercourse or to a sexual act can withdraw that consent anytime during the course of that vaginal act or sexual act. But I don't know, it's worded weird. But anyway, it's saying pretty much if any of that act happens, you cannot really pull your consent from it once you start. So if you give consent in the beginning, your consent from the beginning, it's consented all the way through to the end.
Essentially, it's like entering into a binding legal verbal contract.
Yep.
Like, okay, I consent to this act, and you can't pull out of the contract until the deed is finished. Wow. We're really the only state that does that?
Yep. According to this, out of the 50 states, we are the only state that still had that law.
Man, North Carolina's ass backwards, bro.
And that's just weird. That's what people. They might have revised it and got rid of it now, but this was as I don't know. This article is from June 2nd, 2019, so I doubt it changed that soon. The original article I read you was from 2017. This is from 2019.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt the law still in effect. I wouldn't doubt it at all. I feel like North Carolina is always the last person to come through with some social reform.
Yeah,
it's especially like you see in recent years, like House Bill 2 and all that stuff.
Yep, HB 2 and all that.
Yeah, we don't necessarily get the same freedoms as other states, just because we live in a backwards ass state. To be honest with you,
so this is pretty much stupid. I know we're going on a tangent, but this is pretty much stupid right here. So once consent is given, and and you're having sex with a person, if whoever withdraws consent, it does not matter. The other person can keep going as long as they want to keep going because consent was given. But they state that there are possible other ways to prosecute them under other different type of laws and or actions that may occur. It doesn't get into specifics, but it says pretty much you can get a person charged with something, but it won't be rape.
Right. So what does it become? Like assault or something? Like what is it?
I'm not exactly sure. They're kind of vague on what kind of charges will come against them. They just say that they can kind of circumvent the system and find a different way to charge the person, but it wouldn't be like a sexual battery type thing.
Right. So the person wouldn't become a sex offender. They'd probably just get charged with like a misdemeanor or assault or something like that.
Probably.
Like, they wouldn't go on the list, but they go in the system.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. How do you, so just drawing from all that we just talked about, how do you determine those two things? So to you, what is rape? What is consent?
Consent from my own perspective is if we both willingly and knowingly engage in the acts or in the acts that lead up to sex, Rape in my mind is anything that becomes unwanted. So in my book, if we're having sex and for whatever reason you change your mind, I'm not going to keep getting my 50 strokes, as Kevin Hart and them will say. I'm going to look at you and I'm like, all right, cool. You sure? This, all right, I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm like, I'm probably not even sticking around. I'm leaving at that point. If you decide to cancel sex in the middle of sex, I'm gone. I'm not hanging around to figure out everything else.
Right, because I'm not trying to be there after the fact. Because if you cancel it, I'm like, all right, it's like getting on a flight. I'm like, all right, nah, okay, we got. I'm on a flight from Charlotte to LA. We got to stop it. We got to stop in Texas because the plane got a problem. Okay, well, nah, I'm probably gonna catch a different flight.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
probably gonna leave there. I'm probably gonna leave this airplane, find another one, and keep it moving.
Exactly. Like I'll call you, text you tomorrow. We'll talk about it. We can try to figure out what happened, baby. But for that night, I'm gone. All right, look, I'm gonna let you sort through what you got to sort through. I apologize for any inconveniences, but I'm leaving.
Yeah, right. I think Trevor Noah was talking about that actually. So he was like, one of his interviews on the Breakfast Club. He was like, I think he had been hanging out with this girl and they had been drinking. And she asked him to go back to his place, basically. So once they got back to his place, she started talking about, oh, I don't think I should be here. I've had too many drinks, all that junk.
Yeah.
And he was like, immediately he was like, all right, look, let me shut this shit down. let me call you an Uber so you take your ass home.
Yeah.
Because I'm not finna get caught out here in these streets with no rape charges, fam. So I'm gonna call you an Uber. We try this again later.
Yeah.
Like, you immediately shut that down and be like, nah, I'm good. But then, like, back in the day, well, not even back in the day. We're talking about like a few years ago for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, if she made the advance, like let's say 10 years ago, she made the advance, said let's go back to your place, even though she was drunk.
It was a wrap from that point.
Exactly. For most guys, that's consent. Like, all right, I want to go back to your place. You wanted to be here, even though you said after the fact you didn't think you should be here. Yeah. Shoot, for me, I'd be like, nah, bro. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Like, I'm gonna escort you out of the place. Like, nah, we can't be doing this.
I know you live in North Carolina. That might be plausible consent right there. No.
Yeah,
I'm joking with you. I'm not
feeling it at all.
I know we ain't about that kind of life.
North Carolina or not, bro. I'm not with it. I'm not with it.
Nah, I think the only thing that I don't like when it comes to rape statues and stuff like that is if a inebriated man and an inebriated woman both have sex. Mm-hmm. One of the parties are still able to go down and report it as rape. I feel like if both parties are inebriated and they are inebriated together, I'm not saying a random drunk man met a random woman at the bar and drug her into the bathroom by her hair. But I'm saying if we are out drinking, we're partying, we're having a good time, we Uber back to one of our places, we're cuddled up on the couch, and next thing you know, we wake up naked. I don't feel like either one of us at that point should be held, I guess, liable for that in a rape sense.
Yeah, because if neither one of you had the right mind to say yes or no, then it's like, well, if it happened, you kind of just let that one go, because it's like, all right, well, neither one of us really knew what we were doing, but it happened, so now, all right, you gotta chalk that one up. Like, let the universe have that one.
Yeah. Like I said, but it's been cases though where there's been college athletes, there's been regular people where people have gone down and taken rape charges because they were both inebriated, and 9 times out of 10, I hate to say it this way, the woman wakes up and says that she did not want to have sex with that person, and it happened.
Right. Exactly that. Exactly that. And that's the story that happens when there's a story like that that's reported. 100% of the time, it's pretty much the woman saying, okay, I didn't want this to happen, because I can't think of a man in history that's been like, oh, I didn't want to have sex. Well, obviously there's some men that regret it, but there's not a man on the street that's like, well, she raped me, or I didn't,
Yeah.
It just kind of let it, like you said in the beginning, they just kind of let it go.
Yeah, we chalk it up as a loss. We just take it as an
Right.
L. It's another body added to the count, and we move on.
Exactly that. I don't know, man. It's I'm not gonna say it's a tough area to determine because morally, like you know what's right and what's wrong. Obviously, you get into a situation, it's like it's a little, and you inebriated, it's a little different to handle the situation. But like when you in a situation, you a clear mind and body, you know what to do and what not to do,
Exactly.
and I would think you'd be able to read the situation better than you know 1 out of 5 people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, especially when it comes to men, you have to err on the side of caution. I'd rather send a woman home and get a text saying like, "Damn, you could have got this, but you didn't make that move," versus having to knock on my door and somebody telling me I need to come down to the station with them because I acted on something I thought was there, it wasn't.
Exactly. Exactly. I am in no way, shape, or form trying to have SWAT come busting my door like, hey, bro, you got to go downtown, cuz
Yeah.
I'm not with it. 'Cause I'm not finna get accused of rape and then go to jail, lose a fight, and get raped. I'm not with it. Not doing it,
Nah, not dealing with those booty snatchers and booty bandits out there. Can't have that.
bro. Bro, as soon as what's his name from the Boondocks, the
Yeah.
Booty Warrior, I was
Yes.
like, yo. As soon as I found out about that, man, I was like, yo, I ain't never going to jail, bro. I'm gonna have to die first.
Uh-huh.
if I commit a crime, I'm not because no matter how tough and strong you are, bro, it's always a chance you lose a fight on the wrong day and he gets you, bro. I'm like, nah, that gonna be me, fam.
Yeah. Can't have
That
that.
gonna be me.
Can't have that. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people, because in normal society, rape typically is a male on female experience. But then
Right.
when you get into those environments like prisons, or I'll even say this because I spent some time in the military. It wasn't very long, but I was there. Settings like that where you have a bunch of one type of sex together. I'm not saying people were getting raped in my barracks or nothing like that, but you develop an animalistic culture. Things
Right.
happen that wouldn't traditionally happen, period. Whether that's fights, arguments, or those kind of acts. So I think people they downplay any kind of male on male violence as it to just us being stupid and us being primitive. Versus when this happens to a woman, people think of the clear male to female physical advantages and how things can be forced to happen.
Right. Yeah. Because, like you said, if you lock a bunch of people up in a cage like animals, they're gonna behave like animals.
Yep.
That was another thing they talked about on the Trevor Noah interview. They were talking about essentially prison reform and how do we essentially deal with people like that? Because I mean, to be honest with you, if you stick a bunch of people in a prison, right,
Yeah.
and you cage them like animals, and you put all the worst people in one spot, and it facilitates that anger and that animosity. Like, how do they come out a changed person?
What is it? So like I said, you got your degree with computers. My degree is based around people, and honestly, that's something we were talking about was prison reform specifically in like the last couple of weeks. They were talking about how the prisons aren't set up to handle mental illness. Like a
Right.
lot of the
Yeah.
people you see on the streets are mentally ill. They end up in prisons, and they get better mental illness care in prison than they will on the street. So you got people that are not sane. They suffer from schizophrenia and different kind of mental disorders. Then you have hardened criminals who are serving life sentences. And then you got first time offenders who might have done something stupid like steal a car or rob their grandma or just I'm not gonna say like petty crimes, but crimes that deserve to serve a jail sentence. And you throw everybody in a handbasket and drop them off in the middle of an isolated area. I don't think anybody's walking out of that a better man.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But see, let me see. They were talking about they ultimately got to the point in the discussion where they were like, all right, I think one of the first things we could do to reform prisons is to treat people differently based on crimes committed. I mean, obviously there's tiers, right? You
Yeah.
have your rapists, you have your murderers, you have your people that commit fraud, people that sell weed, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Basically you have your violent offenders and non-violent offenders, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing. Like they're sort of lumping everybody in together for the most part. They're sticking these violent offenders in with these not. Basically, this is the big difference. It's people we're mad at versus people we're afraid of,
Yeah.
right? If I lock people up that I'm mad at with people that I'm afraid of, eventually people I'm mad at become the people I'm afraid of, just because that's the life they had to endure. It's like
They had to become that to survive.
exactly. You send a soldier overseas to Iraq, Fallujah, whatever, they come back with PTSD, and you wonder why they're so crazy. Or you see a lot of police brutality instances, right, where people shoot first, ask questions later. That's because people are not ready for these situations. Like I think we talked about it before, off air, but it's like it takes longer to become a barber than it does to become a police officer. It's like, all right, once I get to that first situation where I see a bullet whiz past my head, I got PTSD automatically. I'm not finna die over
Oh yeah.
nobody doing anything stupid. So like you immediately get PTSD and you get an itchy trigger finger.
Oh yeah. From that point on, because at the end of the day, it's a job you signed up for, but it's a job, and a lot of people related to that. It's a job, and I'm gonna come home. That's all they know. I'm gonna come home. So you're gonna do
Right.
whatever you got to do to survive. Or you get tossed into a prison cell, and you got 4 years, but the man that you sleeping in the cell with got the next 50. Who's more liable to do something? Who has less to lose in a situation?
Exactly. Because suddenly you give a man 50 years, and suddenly he not getting out no time soon, no matter what. Because even if he get good behavior, he's still serving 25 years.
Exactly.
That's a wrap for him. He like that's my entire life. And shoot, once most of them get out of jail, they got like we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
In a decade, the world we were raised for no longer existed. Like things had changed so much in 20 years that how do you even come back and become a contributing member of society? Like how do you even come back and get your life together?
Was like we were like the cases we were studying. One of the cases is a man. He served 10 years in prison for
Right.
stealing a purse. He stole a purse. He served 10 years in prison. They deemed him mentally ill, quote unquote. That's a factor in it, yes. But he did 10 years in prison. When he found out that he was finally about to get probation and go home,
He killed
he
a nigga.
did not want to do it. He begged to stay. He begged for them to put him in a mental hospital or anything versus sending him home. And they were like, there is no reason for us to keep you here. We have to let you go. He was arrested, I don't want to say 12 times within the 3 months that they released him. And then finally, he decided to try to rob a drugstore just so they would put him back in the prison.
Right.
People get
Because
institutionalized, and that's the life they become accustomed to.
he had no idea how to deal with the world after he'd been locked up for that long.
Tell me this: what's the value of $5 to them versus 3 packs of ramen when that's the system that they learned?
It's no difference, bro. It's like you you get to that three hots and the cop mentality. You like there's some guys out here in these streets that like I'll never be homeless because you could easily walk into a bank and be like, all right, you got a note that says I'm robbing the bank, give me all the money. Don't you push the alarm, I'll kill you. Meanwhile, all you walked in there with a note saying you was robbing the bank. They immediately call the police. You don't have any weapons on you. You go to jail. You spend however long in jail for
Probably at
for
least
attempting to
probably at
rob a
least
bank.
10.
Yeah, and you back to that three hots and a cot, and you in a minimum security prison for the most part, just because you had no weapons. You walked in with a note, like you didn't threaten anybody, you didn't wave a gun in the air, none of that.
It's a mindset. Like we gotta do reform on a whole nother level. If it boils down to stuff like that, like you said, honestly, separating violent offenders from non-violent offenders, that's a step in its own. And then when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the violent offenders, you can't really be pairing people that are, say, serving 5 years or less with people are doing 10, 15, 20 years. Because, like I said, you take us for account. We're both 28. If we did
Mm-hmm.
something and we went to prison and we were given 20 years, by the time we come out, we'd be damn near 50. A lot of people will
Exactly.
sit there and look at that like there ain't shit I can do in my life at 50 years old. So they get already in that mindset that I'm gonna spend the rest of my life here. So you take a person that's got that mindset that this is my life for forever and stick it with somebody that's got a couple years who you could probably actually have that chance to reform through work programs and stuff, and sticking with a guy who's this is my life. So you gonna live my way or I'm gonna beat the fucking shit out of you every day. What's gonna happen?
Exactly. I mean, the guy with nothing to lose obviously imposes his will, man. Like
Exactly.
it's not even a question because it's like, all right, well, if I got to live here for the next 50 years, things are gonna go my way,
Yeah.
and there's no downside to him not doing that just because he got 50 years. What's another 10 or 15 years added to his sentence for bad behavior?
Exactly. Once a person accepts what they are at in their reality, the worst thing in the world to face is a man with nothing to lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This now concludes part 1 of episode 1. If you like what you heard so far, stay tuned and please click on part 2, where we talk about things like social media and facing fear and anxiety. These podcasts are brought to you in partnership with Shell Athletics and Turnkey Properties. That's TURNKEA Properties and SHEL Athletics. Thank you and have a great listen.